And I'd say the other one, which has become more common, is sort of clarifying the loss aversion. Like, what is the missed opportunity by not doing this? You're basically trying to walk in and make sure people understand what they're missing out on. And I think it's our job not just to show them what the ROI is, but show them that by not doing it, like they're missing out on all these things from a career development perspective, from a customer experience perspective, from a company success perspective. You have to paint that picture for people.
Welcome back to the Honest Marketing Podcast, where you learn proven strategies to grow your business without selling your soul. I'm your host, Travis Albritton, and today I have Alex Levin from Regal.io joining me on the podcast. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Thank you for having me.
So before we dig into more specific things about your company, I'd love to just hear more about the backstory of why you started Regal and what's the problem that you solve for people.
Sure. So really, I spent a lot of time, in the beginning of my career, helping companies move online and sell to consumers online. And then both my co-founder and I were actually both hired by an early stage home services company. And we sort of thought, look, we know this playbook, like we're so good at this, like, all you do is like you make it all self-serve online and you stop talking to your customer. And these old school home services people don't get it. Like they think it's all about personal touch. It's not, just make it all digital. And so we kind of did that, and it wasn't unsuccessful. Like, ultimately the entity owned Angie's List, Home Advisor, Handy, did about $1.5 billion in revenue. So a material business. But we found that in home services, when you took away all the personal touch, actually it hurt your business drastically. And a big part of our revenue came in through both for new customers and existing repeat customers through the contact center. So through whether it was SMS or calls or, interactions with the customer. So it was a very big learning experience for us that like the aim was not just to make everything self-serve or digital. The aim was, how do you figure out what is the best experience for the customer that drives the most sort of repeat behavior, as long as it's ROI positive. So no, I was not going to go and like spend a day with one customer myself to go and get one booking. But was somebody going to give them a call and remind them that, it's been a year since their last, maintenance and they should do it again? Yeah, that's very high value. So I think that was a big eye-opening experience. We were pretty big contact center, probably a $20-30 million a year customer for our CCaaS providers, the software providers that built the contact center software. And we went to them and said, guys, this is so exciting. Like the contact center is not a cost center. It actually like helps us with our marketing and our acquisition and retention. And like, they told us to pound sand. They said, go away, you're not right. Nobody cares about that. Like, our job is just to reduce interactions, go away. And so the reason we started Regal, the company we're at now, was that we thought there were more of these businesses out there that were in education, lending, home services, healthcare, that had high touch models that needed better tooling to bring a lot of that high touch model into the modern age. So what we think about is how do we build the right contact center software for these high-tech businesses so that they can really make sure they're driving the best possible outcomes for themselves and for their customers. So as an example, today, brand people know, for instance, is Row. We work with Row. That's a very complicated interaction. You're coming online. You have to give all kinds of information, get a prescription, talk to a doctor, deal with renewals. There are other products that they have. And so they need quite complexity to make sure they're doing that in a way that actually feels very personal and high touch, even though it is digital.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I want to dig into there. The first thing I want to pick your brain on is, I've certainly seen a trend in digital marketing specifically towards automation, towards self-service, towards building funnels and taking everyone through a linear journey where you kind of assume certain things about your prospects or the people coming in at the top of your funnel, your cold traffic, or even in those high intent purchasing decisions, still wanting to bring people into a linear path. How do you create more personalized touch points and interactions and a unique customer journey for each person or for groups of people without it turning into, 27 different drip campaigns and 35 different email sequences and really just becoming unmanageable to try and keep everything working together and even knowing like what's working and what's not working? How have you really helped with that?
Yeah. So start with even the core underlying principle that you're talking about. In marketing teams 20 years ago, they started understanding that you can use first-party customer data to start personalizing the journeys. I can't tell you how many contact centers I go to where the people there were taught treat everybody the same. They were taught it's about efficiency. It's about an assembly line where everything is treated the same, so it's very easy, and you can know whether or not it's happening and do it that way. And when we walk in and say, guys, why are you doing it that way? They go, well, there is no other way. Like, we can't efficiently reach people and treat them all like individuals. And so what we're really sort of educating the market on is there are tools, and Regal's built sort of the definitive one to aggregate all that customer data, that first party customer data, so that you can know who to reach in what moment with what message and what channel, and do that all in the right way. So first of all, I think that's a big transition in the contact center that happened marketing a long time ago, but hasn't happened in the contact center yet, and actually allows them to get on equal footing. I think a lot of marketing teams kind of look down in the contact center and go, oh, they're just a call center, but they're not right? The people running contact centers are very smart and working in very difficult environments where it's not push a button and you spend money, right? It's you have to actually go train somebody to do it. And so having the wrong contact center software, legacy contact center software, makes it impossible to do your job. But having tools like Regal allows you to actually go out and do some of the things you're talking. So to your specific question, one of the beauties of actual journey building software is you don't need a million different journeys. You can start saying things like, hey, let's have a conditional node. And think of it like Goosebumps Choose Your Own Adventure. Depending on the thing the customer does, the experience they're going to get is different. And it's actually not that hard because the journey does it naturally. Identifies you by name, by state, by the use case you have, by the pain point you have, and is making sure the script is right, the text is right, the thing is personalized to you. So it's actually not that hard. The beauty of these journey builds is also a business owner can go in and A/B test and change things very easily without having to go and try to retrain the whole contact center on what to do manually. They just go in and change the cadence, and now all of a sudden the contact center is doing it differently. So it's really an eye-opening experience. I was talking to I won't say which one, but an Ivy League school a couple of years ago, and they were telling me how embarrassed they were in how they reached out to prospective students because their contact center software let them basically dial X time for Y days. And I go, okay, you're, Ivy League school, how can you be, stuck with that? I think, well, that's all the software does. So obviously now we work with, a lot of these big, universities actually through the online program managers. So ultimately schools like Harvard or Georgetown, things like this, use our systems to reach out to students because they can now figure out when should they reach out to that student with what message and how do they make sure they're doing that in a way that's representative of the brand.
And walk me through how you build those types of customer experiences into the software itself, into the product that you develop with Regal. Because it's one thing to say, okay, we're going to split test these different things. We're going to have these conditional notes and we're going to time things based on content or information we have about these specific people. And I'm just curious about kind of the roadmap for how you develop the product over time and refined it over time from that initial MVP version to where it is now, and some of the things that you knew would be critical to the success of your company.
For sure. So, again, a lot of this happened in marketing first. So my co-founder and I had spent a lot of time running marketing teams. So we'd use, Iterable, Braze, and then sort of more the SMB versions like Klaviyo or MailChimp or something like that. And, we had seen sort of the good and bad of these sort of systems that aggregated real-time data and then allowed to use a journey builder. And so when we ultimately built our real-time data streaming that allowed us to pull data from lots of different systems, whether your CRM or your website or whatever it is, and then we built our own journey builder, was with those learnings in mind. So I think we're lucky in that we're very close also with some of the founders of those companies and took best practices. So in Regal, the A/B testing, the conditional, the sort of things like that, the delay nodes are quite advanced and quite easy to use because we learned from people who came before. We didn't have to come up with this from scratch. And even more importantly, we were built on a more modern infrastructure. So a lot of the old journey builders, the way they ignore the technical term for a sec, the way they basically at each moment considered should they do something or other, that could take 10 or 20 seconds because of the infrastructure. In ours, we can do that in near real time, even in huge volume, because we're in a much more modern infrastructure that was built for that kind of real-time data streaming and evaluation.
And so walk me through the different tentacles of these different ways that you help inform these call centers to connect with either their customers to re-engage with them or prospects or people in their funnel. What are
I'd say the four big ones that are sort of very of moment now. So their sort of standard inbound stuff that they thought couldn't change. Well, we go, guys, like, I just went through your IVR, press one for this, press two for that. And you're not using anything about the customer. You didn't know that I already was a customer, that I had done this service recently, so we'll inject all of that first party customer data into those IVRs to allow them to have much better inbound automation, because there is a lot of improvement there. On outbound, it's wholesale, again, to change from just like a sales dialer with very simple campaigns to actually figuring out, how do you brand the call? What phone number do you call from? Which customer do you call when? So like that's a big piece. I think from an AI agent standpoint, that's really become in the last 6 months the top things. For a long time, people talk about AI in the contact center. It was kind of about enhancing agents. It's now shifted truly for the top brands to, like, I think in some use cases an AI agent alone. And so we offer AI agents, particularly in voice, that are way ahead of what's possible in other systems. And then I say, the piece that it maybe is harder to describe, but it's important in the contact centers, is we have every sort of digital, what they consider digital channel in a contact center, not the same as digital marketing, but so, SMS, email, voicemail drop, voice broadcast, all these things that allow you to reach the customer without necessarily having to have an agent on the phone are critical pieces that can help the experience for the customer and the efficiency for the contact center without actually increasing their cost. And so that's, something we were built natively with, because it's the world we come from and we're used to. But again, if you look at legacy contact center software, they were built before SMS existed. And so all of that stuff is just a bolt-on that comes from different phone numbers. It doesn't interface with it. The agent can't see what happened. The messages are different. And so it never works as well in the legacy tools.
Talk to me a little bit more about those AI agents that you just mentioned. My only real context for it is seeing news headlines like, I think it's Klarna, the buy now pay later software, where they basically said we're gonna replace our whole customer service team with AI because it's better at answering questions and obviously costs less than people. Is that what you're speaking to or talking about, or is it something else?
Yeah, so a lot of different opportunities in AI agents. We specifically obviously serve the contact center. In the contact center, widely, I'd say the most talked about opportunities just on sort of inbound customer support, and largely over text, where really it's how do I use this knowledge base and these AI agents to respond over text so my human agents don't have to. We really don't focus on that. That's become quite commoditized. What we focus on is what we think is a much more difficult problem, which is in some brands, phone calls, like the actual phone experience, is really important. And so you need to have an AI agent that can talk on the phone. The things that were built for that SMS or whatever text back and forth are not going to work, because on SMS, you can have a 5-second lag. Nobody cares. On phone, you have to be able to respond within about 500 milliseconds, so that when you add in the telephony delay, it's, sub 800 milliseconds and it feels like a normal conversation. You need to be able to handle interruptions in voice. You need to be able to handle different accents. You have to be able to handle the way in which you're going to express this and the tonality and the voices and all this stuff. So there's a number of very complicated things in voice that we think make it a more interesting problem. So we've really focused on voice, particularly, again, in these slightly more complicated examples, in healthcare, education, lending, so on and so forth. So like not just where's my package delivery, which is like super rote, but how do you handle qualification? How do you handle objection handling? How do you make sure you're then passing somebody to another agent or scheduling that next call? That's stuff that we've gotten very good at. And we're not walking in and sort of replacing 100% of contact centers. We're replacing very specific use cases where the AI agent is going to outperform a human agent. Slowly, as AI agents add capabilities, we may be able to, add other use cases where there'll be, sort of AI agents as the first line instead of human agents. But it'll never be a situation where there's no human agents. Escalations will come to humans. There'll be human in the loop. There'll be super agents for certain situations where there's complexity that is outside of the bounds of what you've allowed a tier one agent to do. And that exists today, right? What we're just doing is replacing tier one agents, not the full infrastructure of a contact center.
Yeah, and you mentioned two industries, lending or finance, and then healthcare. Those are pretty heavily regulated industries. How are these AI agents and injecting AI and computer and machine learning and things like that? How does that interact with those type of regulatory industries where, anything that they do has to go through multiple rounds of legal to make sure they're not, susceptible to any kind of lawsuit? Now you're relying on this large language learning model to interact with or to generate those voice scripts and voice interactions.
Yeah, so I'll give you sort of two answers in two directions. So one is, yes, those industries are more regulated. You have to understand how the rules work, but I actually think sometimes, if you understand how the rules work and you set everything up correctly, that can be a good go-to-market motion because, a lot of companies don't know how that works. So we have served healthcare and financial services clients for a long time, and so are very comfortable in those environments and we can make sure that like we're properly meeting those criteria. So that I think is actually an advantage in some ways. The other one I'll leave you with is size of customer. So actually, we find that larger customers, regulated or not, are very nervous about AI and are going through rounds of internal AI panels and legal things and compliance things, which are slowing them down. In mid market, they go, oh, so what are the rules? And we'll give them the like rules. They go, okay, I see the rules. I'm going to follow those rules. Is this going to be like better? And, my current agent's in this situation and cheaper than my current agents. Great. Go ahead. And like in a week, like, they follow the rules. Like they're not doing anything illegal, right? They're doing all the right things and they then get the cost savings and they get, the improvement in performance. And so it's an opportunity where AI is going to actually massively improve the growth rates and the outcomes for mid-market companies, and it's not going to help enterprise companies because they're moving too slowly. So look, there are some cases where, hey, if I were using an AI agent to like optimize my, I heard an example where they're using AI in Formula One to optimize like how the car is driving. Okay, do that slowly. Let's be careful. But like, if you're going to have an AI agent, who's the one qualifying a customer to see whether or not they should be going in and getting, the life insurance or which kind of life insurance they're getting. And AI agent's great at that. Like that's something they're going to do very, very well. And so whether you're mid-market enterprise, like if you're not pushing on that quickly, you're going to fall behind.
Yeah, and I'd love to learn more about your own kind of like marketing and expansion strategy as you really are pioneering new types of technology or bringing emerging technology into spaces and into industries which are using technology that's often 15, 20 years old. What has that been like for you as you have those conversations, as you talk with prospects and really develop your own ideal avatar for who you're best positioned to serve? Walk me through that process and how you're focused on growing the company and continuing to both serve the customers that you have, but then also expand into new markets and to new opportunities.
Yeah, look, at the core, we were the buyer, right? We were running marketing contact centers at these very considered high touch industries, and we felt underserved, which is why Regal exists. So our commitment to our customers always is that we will focus on them, serve them, and innovate for them better than anybody else. So we may not have exactly what they need today in an area, but if they come to us and tell us that this will improve their business, well, by golly, we're going to go and do that because it's going to help all of our customers. So we are I think our biggest advantage is our focus on exactly this set of users that no one else is very focused on. I think, as we go forward, there's an opportunity in our industry, like to really build a very big business doing that. So in the same way, like a Salesforce became the default in B2B or a Shopify became the default in whatever it is, in e-commerce, like we see this opportunity to build a very big business. And so we're willing today to go and invest quite a bit upfront in engineering, right? R&D to do that, even if it's losing money, and invest in education, like this podcast, let's say, or like other things to make sure the market sees what's possible and starts moving in that direction. So those are things we can do because we've raised outside money to be able to go and lose money today to invest in that future vision. So when you talk about how we're positioning the market, I think it's, how do we get in front of those key decision makers in the contact center and in marketing teams and executive teams and educate them about the shift that's coming and what's possible. I think that's starting to happen. The hardest part for us in contact center industry is creating the urgency to switch now, because the way often this works is it's not like a marketing tool where you have two admins using it and you kind of can switch it out and whatever. In contact center, you spend a year implementing it. You have a 5-year contract. You have 1,000, agents who are on it. So switching it is not like an easy thing. So even if they then believe that this is the way of the future, we need to make sure we're creating urgency. And so that, I think, is one of the difficult things in contact center marketing, is making sure that you're creating that throughout, all the things that, and it's something that we continue to work on today. But, each time there is like a real rapid change in technology, I think there's more opportunity for the startups than for the incumbents. So if nothing was changing, the current 4 or 5 big contact center software companies would win. But in a world where all of a sudden there's an explosion of customer data, we could do something different. And now there's all this improvement in AI technology, and we can do something like that's where really we can walk in and make a huge impact on customers, and it forces them to use the incumbent because the legacy companies don't have that software yet.
Yeah, that's interesting. B2B is a glorious thing when it works, because then you can really serve your clients at a high level, and they can invest in you equally, and you can really build something together. But you have those highly considered longer sales cycles where it's meetings and meetings and reconnecting and hey, maybe next year. And you know, what are some things that you've learned just in doing B2B sales with these larger call centers and creating that sense of urgency? What are some of the things that you've learned? Because being in digital marketing, you see a lot of scarcity and urgency being used, and it's typically more gimmicky. It's like, how do I?
Yeah, I mean that's discounting. Like,
yeah, how do I trick you into getting your credit card? Like that's the game, right? And so how, when you're focused on these long-term relationships, do you help them understand the opportunity that they're missing, and doing so in a way that's real and tangible and is perceived as you putting their interest in mind and not just your own?
Yeah, so some of it in my experience is truly just understanding the words that different people and different levels and different industries use, and they're quite different. If I walk into a home services company and talk about driving more revenue from lead gen, great. I've nailed it at that level. Maybe I'm the exact guy. I just need to talk about the contact center being a revenue center versus a call center. Versus if I go into healthcare and I talk about talking revenue from lead gen, they'll go, what? Like, that's not what we do, right? In healthcare, they're very focused on improving patient outcomes. So how can the communication technology they have improve patient outcomes? Because that's ultimately what matters. So I think using the right words is a big part of it. What we try in marketing largely is, two different things. On one side, we try to be very ROI focused. Many companies are very just product feature focused. Hey, we have this feature. Hey, we have that. We try to, yes, we will obviously show the features and we can do it, but we try to say, what is the business reason why this matters? Today, your answer rate is this, and we get it to that. Or today, your average dollar value per new user is this, and we can get it to that. So there's a business reason that we're going to do this transformation project. And I'd say the other one, which has become more common, is sort of clarifying what is like the loss aversion, like what is the missed opportunity by not doing this. Sometimes people call this fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But you're basically trying to walk in and make sure people understand what they're missing out on, because otherwise, like it's people are not going to stick their necks out and go and change things if they don't think that it's really necessary. And I think it's our job not just to show them what the ROI is, but show them that by not doing it, like they're missing out on all these things from a career development perspective, from a customer experience perspective, from a company success perspective, right? So you have to paint that picture for people.
Certainly. Where can people that are listening go to learn more about specifically your tool, and then just the corner of the marketing and sales industry that you're in? Do you have any resources, templates,
Sure.
guides, blogs? Where can people go to learn more about you?
If you're in a contact center or in a company where a high touch model is very important for your customers, feel free to go to regal.io or email me at hello@regal.io. There's a lot of sort of good things that we can sort of share with you.
Perfect. Well, Alex, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I know I learned a lot today, and I think everybody listening did as well. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.